Hi, I'm Tricia Leach, a senior developer at Work & Co., where I use Storybook every day to create digital products for clients such as Google, Odyssey, and Steve Jobs Archive. Thanks for joining me today to create a digital garden. Our tech stack will be Storybook 7 with React and Vite. We'll also be using TypeScript, CSS with custom properties for styling, and for animation framer motion. The first thing we'll do is adjust our SVGs. The first thing I do when I export is I remove the width and height. I make sure that we have a view box set, and if there are any fills that have a color, I'm changing them to current color. View box is what will let it flex with the container, and this current color will allow the SVG to inherit the color from the parent. So let's check out our SVG wrapper component and story. Here you can see we're taking in props like children, color, width. We're applying those styles inline. If we take a look at the story, the args match up to those props, which is what creates the controls here in Storybook. These args are set at the component level, so they'll impact all components or all stories within this component, but we're also setting some args at the story level. So that's how we're getting these different stories here in the sidebar. One of my favorite ways to work with arg types, especially with children, is by mapping to complex values. Here we're setting options. All of these strings map to these React SVGs, React component SVGs, and we're using a control type of select here in Storybook, and we can change them out with this select. Some of our other controls are color. We can change the width, and we can change our width unit. Now that we have our basic building block of the garden, we will take a look at this ground component. Pretty simple, but it has a Boolean here, has decoration, to turn this decoration on and off. We also have a sky component with a circle SVG. And now we'll move on to our composite components. So we're going to be using this floral group component. Here, the most important props for this component are quantity and SVG. We're mapping through that quantity of SVGs to create this repetition here. We also have a number of style props coming in that are, again, attached with style inline. If we take a look at stories, we can see one of my favorite controls for working with numeric values is this range type. Over here, you can see with this gap, this slider just makes it really easy to toggle. Here, we will take a look at some of the other controls. We can change the quantity. We'll change this gap. We can also change the color. And then we have some alignment props here. And so these different props are going to make it really easy for us to fine-tune our arrangements when we start to put our garden together. This is a process that I would work through every day while I'm developing. I really like to toggle these controls and kind of see where my components might break. Here you can see as I scale up this gap, the SVGs are disappearing. So this would be an opportunity for me to fix this bug before it even gets to QA. Now that we have our first composite component, we're going to check out the overlapping groups. And this is where some of the magic with color is really going to start to come into play. So we'll open up this component. And here's a story, and admittedly, the magic is not quite happening yet, but I promise we will get there. Storybook comes with this setting where you can change the background, but sometimes you might want to change all of your colors with theming. Storybook allows us to add our own items to the toolbar here, and so this is what I've done with theme. In the previous Storybook file under global types, I've added a theme. And here we've got 3 items. We've got none, day, and night. So these are the themes I'm working with, and that matches up to what we're seeing here. So changing it, we get a nice grayscale. but an even nicer change is our day theme. And how this is working is I'm adding a global decorator. So this is code that's surrounding all of our stories. So with context, I can grab that theme item I created from context globals. And then that allows me to use this background color to grab the color that I need. And then when that theme changes, it's automatically going to change this background color. It's also the decorator is also adding a div around all of the stories with a class name of theme dash, and that will either be day or night. And now we'll open up theme CSS to see how all of the colors are working together. So at the root, we've declared all of these colors with custom CSS custom properties. And here you can see those different classes that I have. So all of them have a color primary, color secondary, and color tertiary, and so on. And so here, when we're using this day theme, we can see this primary color is citron, which is this color right here. But if we change this to night theme, it's going to change it to cyan. Let's take a closer look at the React component. So one of the props for this component is groups, and this is an array of the floral groups that we looked at earlier. So we're mapping through those floral groups, and essentially this component overlays them on top of each other with absolute positioning. And then we will look at the story. So here's that group, our args for groups. Here we can see we already have 3 floral groups, but if I start to uncomment these additional floral groups, we'll see more flowers pop up. And here, just like we were able to control different aspects of that group with the story, we can change those attributes as well. So now we really have a lot of control over these components and can make a really exciting story for our garden. The last component we'll look at is this garden page. And we'll pull this open. This is very similar. The story here is very similar to the last component. We're taking a lot of floral groups here to create a more complex garden. So here, let's expand this and we'll take a look at our garden. So here you can see we're starting with that gray theme. If we change it to day, we'll get that nice color theme. And let's change it to night. And usually when I get to composing pages in Storybook, the content is coming in through a prop. So that's what's happening here with these groups. But these toggles here will turn on and off attributes on the page. So here we're going to add a ground, and we will add the sky. And all of these animations are happening with framer motion. I've also added this mixed blend mode. Storybook is kind of a fun place to play around with CSS properties that you don't get a chance to work with very often. So had some fun adding that. Now we're going to go back to the story. I have some more complex animations. I'm going to set all of these booleans to true. So we're really going to be able to see everything coming together. And here you can see when we pop back to this that all of those flower groups are popping back in staggered. And the way that this happened with framer motion, we can go back to this overlapping groups component. This is a very quick intro to framer motion, but essentially these motion divs, we've got 2. This is the container, and these are all the floral groups underneath. And these variants are changing based on the is growth staggered prop. So this is the variant for the container. Just adding the staggered children will make any child underneath that parent component perform a staggered transition or animation. And here, this is the variant item. So it's hiding and showing based on this Y attribute. So that's how they're popping up and down. So I hope you've had a really good time taking a look at this project and have gotten inspiration for how you might use Storybook in your own personal projects. Appreciate you spending time with me today, and I hope you enjoy all of the rest of the talks.